Another left-wing trans terrorist murderer of children has struck. And now the country is outraged, heartbroken, and many of us are asking questions that need to be asked, and we have to figure out how we can prevent these things in the future to the greatest degree possible. That requires speaking the truth about this. And here's the truth the media does not want you to think about. This is not the first time this has happened, and sadly, I think this is not the last time we will see something like this. An individual who just go down the line, anti-Trump, wants violence against Trump, said wanted to commit violence against Trump personally, anti-Trump, anti-Christian, really a Satanist who is also living in the delusion of being a different gender. Okay, this was a male to female trans individual. That's confirmed. That is the case. Legally changed the name from a male to a female name. Identified, quote, identified as a woman. This is a man. And clearly had mental health issues, but also had become deeply brainwashed by left-wing ideology that's quite common. And this all ties in together because you have people who are being told, and I don't mean in the deepest, darkest corners of the internet. They're being told by the New York Times. They're being told by MSNBC and CNN. They're being told by the Democrat Party and politicians that trans people are under assault and, in fact, a genocide is underway by the right, that Trump and Trump supporters are trying to, quote, erase trans people. Their erasure is the policy, that we are, by standing in the way of child mutilation surgery, which the Trump administration is, thank God, doing and standing up, and there are states that are standing up and doing the right thing, by standing in the way of child mutilation surgery in the gender affirmation delusion, we are denying people their most basic human right to be who they are. This is the ideology that is out there. And that is orthodoxy in the Democrat Party. That's not fringe belief. It is orthodoxy in the Democrat Party that there is a genocide of trans people underway and that it is the fault of Donald Trump. It is the fault of the Republicans that this is happening. Well, a lot of people, if they thought a genocide was happening, would go to extreme measures. And some people clearly do believe this. The Covington shooting has clear parallels. I mean, this is really a copycat of Covington. The only difference is the actual gender of the shooter in terms of the profiles of these two individuals, but same anti-Christian, anti-God, left-wing, anti-Trump. You go down the whole line. Also an identification with like Joker, with the Joker character. There's a nihilism, there's a sadism, there's a Satanism, there's a viciousness. And this is being promoted in many parts of our society. It is being promoted that children should be subjected to deranged adults twerking in front of them because they're dressed as women, even though the long-standing psychiatric literature on this shows that is actually that men who dress as women do so for sexual gratification. That is a truth that has been in the medical literature, psychiatric literature for decades and decades. Now you never hear it anymore. Oh no, if you have a problem with drag queen story hour for your kids, you're a bigot. If you want to stop kids from going through gender mutilation surgery, you're a Nazi. We have the Democrat Party, half the country, as a really a part of, I say orthodoxy, but it's a party platform now, that the new civil rights struggle is for trans rights. And that new civil rights struggle is that you must treat a man as a woman in all respects because that man says so. And when that man goes through a gender transition surgery, which cannot actually transition their gender, but when that man has surgery to change his parts incompletely and ineffectively, even though the parts aren't supposed to determine the gender, so the whole thing gets messed up, doesn't it? It doesn't make sense. It is a self-refuting logic they're engaged in. This is delusion. This is mental illness. It's very clear. And unfortunately, the psychiatric profession has been taken over by left-wing maniacs for a long time. The psychiatry, this is a fact. You can look it up. The most left-wing branch of medicine is psychiatry. The people, everybody in psychiatry is like Green Party or Bernie Sanders, basically. All these psychiatrists. There are some exceptions, but very, very few. 95% of psychiatrists are left-wing in their beliefs. And this is reflected in how they're willing to change the DSM. They're willing to change the basic definitions of these different conditions. And in this case, to go from treating something as a condition to a civil rights issue to an intrinsic value as a human being issue is to invite these problems. There are demons among us, and those demons are being treated as though they are civil rights heroes, because there are people who are violent, who are dangerous, who are deranged, who think that by acting out, they are doing something heroic. They're striking a blow against genocide. And then they force us to do this thing where we go, they say, well, do you know trans people are people too? Yeah, of course, they're human beings. They should be treated with dignity and kindness and respect. And part of the dignity, kindness, and respect that trans people deserve is not going along with the lie that they have changed their gender. You don't have to be a party to their lie. You don't have to live by lies. And our society, unfortunately, has been completely infiltrated with this madness, and the Democrats are trying to ram it all down our throats. But there's a difference between, hey, I love you, you're one of God's creatures, and you deserve, of course, to be treated with the full protection of the law and to be treated with the full dignity and kindness of a fellow human being. Absolutely. Without that, there is no moral foundation. Without that, there is no morality. But that doesn't mean then that I have to say, but, you know, whatever you do, I'm going to say is good and go along with. If somebody is severely anorexic, which can lead to death, and they say, don't I look fat? It's not kind to look at somebody who weighs 85 pounds, an adult who weighs 85 pounds, and say, you're right, you're fat. That's actually evil. And it's not kind to tell somebody who is a man who says, I think I'm a woman, you're right. Let's have you play on the girls' sports team now. You're right. Let's have you use the women's locker room and have everyone pretend. No, that's not kind. You're being party to a delusion. And when you elevate that even further, when you go beyond that and say that this person's identity that they have created is sacrosanct, and anybody who doesn't see it that way is a Nazi, you are inviting bad things. You are encouraging evil things to happen. And far too many, and the Democrat Party bears all the responsibility for this. The left in this country, the communists in this country, the left-wing media, they bear tremendous responsibility for this. And I will not allow them to keep playing this game of, oh, you know, this is just something that happened in a vacuum and there's no way to tie this. Please, we all know that if anybody with any kind of right-wing identification of any kind was, never mind saying things that are being broadcast from the biggest newspapers in the country, had murdered children, and there was another murder just like it, a couple of years ago? And there have been other shootings with terrorist individuals that have gone on, trans terrorist individuals that we don't even hear about anymore. If it was a right-wing individual, as you know, they would want to call out, you know, the National Guard and just start rounding up Trump voters. I mean, they would completely lose their minds. But because and I'm going to get into this with the mayor of Minneapolis in a second and how he's dealing with this. But the only way to deal with this is the truth. If we will not speak the truth, it will not get better. It will not go away. And we lose. Whenever you're lying, you're losing. You know it and I know it. And on this trans issue, enough is enough. They used our decency. Meaning the left. They used our decency. They used our courtesy to our fellow human beings to get people on the right to say, okay, fine. I'll call you the girl's name. Yeah, grow your hair out, do your nails and everything else. And I'll pretend that you're a girl to be polite to you in the office and everything else. And then they said, no, now it's the law. Now we mandate this. Now this is a protected category. Now we're going to have 200-pound brutes on the women's volleyball team. We're going to have some guy who's smashing the ball into your girl's face and giving her brain damage. That's what they've done. Now we're going to put deranged lunatics into prisons with women because that deranged male lunatic says he's a woman. So that's how they rewarded our courtesy. That is how they rewarded our decency. Make no mistake about it. They used our goodness against us. And what can be more evil than that? All right, we'll come into what the mayor of Minneapolis is saying here in a second. All right, look, if I could turn back the clock a year and just make a financial decision Well, there are some things that I would do, but let me tell you, there's one that I did that I wish I had done a lot more of, okay? Because it was smart, but man, it was even smarter than I thought, and that was buying gold. Birch Gold Group, my friends. Birch Gold Group is the best for getting you actual physical gold to your home. You can keep it in your safe, keep it wherever you keep your money and your safe stuff. But also, they can have an IRA or 401k for you in gold. Birch Gold is the best at this. They're absolutely fantastic, and I recommend you reach out to Birch Gold today. Text my name, Buck, to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Text my name, BUCK, to 989898. Birch Gold will get you started. All right, now let's deal with the mayor of Minneapolis. I mean, this guy is in abject disgrace. Okay, we've known that all along. This is the guy, just to remind you, this is the guy who knelt down and wept at the coffin of George Floyd. George Floyd was a criminal. George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. Do we actually get to speak the truth now? You know, do I wish the cop had taken his knee off of him sooner? Yeah, of course. But he died of a fentanyl overdose. And he pointed a gun at a pregnant woman's belly and threatened to shoot her during a home invasion. So we're gonna paint murals of this guy. We're gonna have the mayor of Minneapolis cry because it's so sad. Disgusting. But this is what race communism does. Race communism rots the brain and the soul, and it can affect anyone. And the mayor of Minneapolis is unfortunately like stage 4 race communism derangement. But now we can get into something different. Now we're talking about the trans. Maybe it's trans communism. This is where he is on this stuff. His first thing, this is going to happen, is what the real problem is after a trans terrorist murders a bunch of kids? Guns. That's the real problem. And I say to myself, why exactly does this moron have to speak out on this at all?
We need to be doing more than talking. It can't just be words. There needs to be action. And when we have seen school shooting after school shooting, when we have seen churches get shot up by horrible actors, I think the impetus has to be on all of us as leaders to do a whole lot more, to recognize that we've got more guns in this country than we have people. And it's on all of us to recognize the truth and the reality that we can't just say that this shouldn't happen again and then allow it to happen again and again beyond that. It's on all of us.
Yeah, it's not the guns, dude. Also, notice what he says. We have more guns than people in this country. Okay, so then what exactly are you going to do about that? You think that passing some new legislation, only 10-round magazines in this state, there's millions of magazines already in circulation that are 30 rounds, only 10-round magazines. You're never going to stop evil, dude. By the way, somebody like this isn't hard. If you want to murder a bunch of kids at a Catholic school, this guy, and I'm not giving away any kind of tactical secrets here because terrorists have done this, just find out where they're going to be gathering and walking, and you can mow them down in a car, right? Evil will always find a way to do evil. But the communists want you to be disarmed. They only want their shock troops and their stormtroopers to have guns so they can force you to, take the 15th Fauci vaccine, right? We all know they showed us who they are. And I sit here and I say, the mayor of Minneapolis, which, by the way, Minneapolis used to be a super safe and beautiful city, and Minnesota was a great state, and then it got democrated. And now it's being destroyed. And you've brought in all these refugees who are causing all kinds of crime problems, and the whole thing is a mess, as you know. But he's going to say that the problem is guns. Of course, he's going to say the problem is guns. What's his solution for it? I might add, we're going to do something about this. We're going to do something about guns. No, you're not. You got no solution. You just you just don't like people who have guns, and so you want to blame the guns and not the ideology and not the belief system. I'll come back into the other thing that he says here in a second, which, get ready for it. What's the real threat, do you think? The mayor of Minneapolis, what's the real threat that we have to be on guard for? All right, look, our sponsor here is Preborn, and Preborn is saving lives. In a moment like this, when we could think about saving lives and the blessings that God brings to those who bring life into this world, every mom, every family that is built, and everyone who helps in that process, man, it really reinvigorates your spirit and gives you hope, doesn't it? And Preborn is doing this every day. What they do is they bring moms into their clinics and they say, look, we're just here to support you and here to help you meet the child in your womb. And they start this with an ultrasound process, because when that mom who's thinking, maybe I'm going to have an abortion, it's tragic, but so many people are pushing abortions on these pregnant women across the country. You know, there's Planned Parenthood, all these organizations. That mom comes in and she says, okay, hold on. You know what, preborn? Let me meet my baby. And they give a free ultrasound. Then the choice for life is so much easier. And then this little baby comes in the world. I've been to a preborn clinic here in Miami. I've met a child. I've met actually numerous children who are the result of this process, meaning that they were at risk of abortion, and then preborn said, no, I'm going to introduce mom to the baby. The pro-life community is what preborn relies on. That means you and me. I donate to preborn. I'd ask you to please consider a donation today. It's $28 in ultrasound. If you could set up to do a recurring $28 a month donation, honestly, $28 a month, you can afford it. You can afford $28 a month to save lives. You can. It's tax deductible, and you can afford $28. So if you're pro-life and you want to step up, please consider it. Dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby, or visit preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn. All right, so what is the mayor of Minneapolis really worried about? What are we all supposed to be so worried about? The backlash against the trans community. Play it.
And I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids. Kids died today. This needs to be about them.
Yeah, there you have it. The real concern after a trans terrorist murders little children in a church is people might say mean things about trans people. The left is deranged, folks, and that means the Democrat Party, because the Democrat Party and the left are the same thing. They're deranged. There's something wrong with them. They have real emotional problems as a group. And we have to remember that. It is up to the right in this country. It is up to the conservatives, to the Republicans, to whatever sane Democrats are still. I don't know why they'd still be Democrats, but there are sane Democrats. They should just leave that crazy party. To independents and to people who are non-political. It's up to the good people to hold the line for sanity, for decency, for God, and for truth. The left abandons all this stuff as part of their trans crusade. And it can have, in the extremes, I'm not saying it happens a lot, I'm not saying it happens all the time, but in the extremes, it can have the most horrific of consequences. And they won't stop. They won't stop pushing this ideology, even though this is going to happen. And they're going to blame guns, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, the real problem here. This is like the old joke that was told. I mean, this is a post 9/11 joke, but you know what the biggest problem we would have in America if radical Islam detonated a nuclear bomb in an American city? All the Islamophobia. Yeah, it stings when you hear that, doesn't it? Because that was true for a while. The Democrat left in this country was the big problem during the war on terror was Islamophobia. It wasn't them blowing up people and running planes into buildings. That was a secondary issue to all the Islamophobia we had to be worried about. Same thing with transphobia. This is what the left does. We will continue to speak the truth here on this show. Hopefully I don't get kicked off of YouTube for this monologue, but you know what? Got to tell you the truth. Shields high.